Hi everyone. So this video is going to be about the types of assisting. So the first type of assist is known as a directive assist. And directive is referring to a firm, hands-on assist. So this is usually when you go in to deepen a posture for somebody. But just so you know, you can also assist by drawing somebody back from a posture that might be too deep, if that makes sense. So directive, once again, is just firm, hands-on. And when we assist, we want to do this gradually. So we don't want to just twist somebody really hard. We want to take a deep breath in as we follow the breath. And then on the exhale, we do generally a light touch. And then we inhale again. We go medium touch. And then inhale again. And there is the deep touch where you can stay for another couple of breaths. I wouldn't recommend going in for a firm assist and then leaving right away. It just means you won't be able to get as many people as you might want to in a particular pose. But it also means you'll stay with that one person and really be there for them in that posture the whole time. So gradual entry, gradual release, but the intention is firm and deep. And remember, again, that you may want to take somebody from a very deep experience back. And that might be okay too, and just what they need in that moment. So the next type of assist is alerting. Alerting is a specific and light touch. So an example of specific and light might mean if I want someone to stand up really tall, maybe I would just tap the crown of their head and they would rise. That's also very energetic assist. Or maybe they're in a twist and I spiral the crown of the head up. That could be another way. And maybe you don't even have to touch them in that way. Maybe you just do this and they just grow taller. So an example of another energetic assist. But a specific light touch might be, for example, if you tell someone to straighten their back leg in crescent lunge, for example, and you go to the back of their leg because you notice that it's still bent. Well, you can just lightly tap the quadricep and then all of a sudden they know to straighten their leg. So that's an example of a specific and light touch. Another type of touch is investigative. So investigative, when you think of the word investigative, you're thinking, let's be curious about this touch, or maybe even just about my proximity to the student. How do they react when I'm close to them? Do they drop down into child's pose? Do they perfect their posture? What kind of information can I receive by just exploring or being curious about this touch? So, or what if you're stretching the hamstring as they're laying down on their back and you hold the heel and then you observe that their leg starts to shake? Well, that's known as the edge. That's good information to have. Not that shaking is a bad thing, but you know that they can't go much further. So that's about observing resistance as well. You'll be able to know the edge of a student because they're not able to rotate or fold or bend backwards any more than they are. There's something that's coming up, and that's resistance. So we observe where the resistance is, and that's part of an investigative experience. So we're curious. And again, someone could drop down a child's pose, and maybe that's a sign that they don't want an assist because you got close to them. Or maybe they perfect their posture in downward facing dog. And you know, ooh, they're really excited about assists. their practice changes when the teacher is close by. Isn't that interesting? So that is an investigative touch. Now, another type of touch would be supportive. Supportive is something we always want to do. Supportive is that idea of isolation and stabilization of a posture. How do we support the assist? Well, we have to ground down, we have to isolate before we start moving. There's that balance of structure and stability that you want to see in a pose, and adaptability, flexibility, and mobility. So we can help do that for our students by stabilizing and providing a safe and secure place for their movement to occur. Another type of assist is comforting. Now, this one can be tricky because oftentimes it could lead to dependency in a class. So let's say pigeon pose, for example. Somebody is having an emotional experience in pigeon pose, and as a teacher, you see that and you observe that and you want to be there for your student. So maybe you can, say some words of wisdom that might encourage everybody to, if you have emotions that are coming up and you feel like you want to emote in some way, then please feel free to do that in this safe space. Or maybe you put your hand on the back of the heart and that initiates or triggers an emotional response because you know somebody's on the edge of doing that. Sometimes I like to do that because we tend to suppress or avoid our emotions that are coming up. And so if I can initiate that through a touch, then I might do that, but I won't stay there for long. I'll initiate the response and then I'll move away to not create dependency or coddling in a classroom, right? Because there's a rhythm of the class I'm trying to uphold. So I wouldn't go over to someone who's having an emotional response and, stop the class and be like, hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Maybe that would be something that's really nice to do after the class. Hey, I noticed you had some emotions in class today. Is everything okay? Is there anything that you would like to talk about? So that could be a really helpful way to support your students. So this touch is usually very sensitive in nature and also light. Another type of assist is in an unnecessary assist. I know this sounds silly, but there are many times accidentally where you might run into a student. I've done this many times before, where maybe I'm talking with my hands and I accidentally swipe somebody, or maybe I step on someone's hand accidentally. So we want to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're weaving between our students really gracefully and easily to avoid any unnecessary touch. Also, especially as beginner students, you might really want to go assist somebody, but you don't have the full confidence to do it yet. So you're kind of, I call it hovering, hanging out really close by a student, just thinking to yourself, or maybe starting to touch a certain area, but then you let go, but then you touch again. And unless you have that full confidence to go in and assist and you know what you're going to do because you've observed first, then don't figure it out while the student is there in your classroom. Figure it out first and then go practice on your student. So also I mentioned before, unnecessary would be to touch a student in anger or with bad energy or for inappropriate things as far as attraction to a student. So that would be another example of unnecessary touch. You don't want to touch a student because you're attracted to them. You want to touch your students equally amongst the class. So we're maintaining that professional boundary with assisting as well. And that's really important, especially for the men that are coming to be yoga teachers, because there's a bit of a double standard there, and most women are coming to yoga and we don't know where everybody has been before. So we need to tread very lightly and err on the conservative side if you're unsure. Verbal cueing is another type of assist. So an example of verbal cueing might be the shift in the tonality of your voice. So maybe in the beginning, depending on the style of class, if it's a yin class, I might be talking like this in a much quieter voice, and that's really helping people to come into the space and relax. But if I'm teaching a class on empowerment, and we're at sun salutations, I'm going to do it with a commanding voice. Inhale, raise your arms up. Exhale, fold forward, and give encouraging cues like that. So verbal cueing as far as tonality of voice can be a great assist in addition to alignment cues. These are great assists. You know, ground through the outer edge of your back foot. Draw your right knee over your second and third toe. Roll your shoulders up and back. Lift your sternum. These are all giving the students the ability to micro assist and to self-assist. And it means you don't have to go around to every student and adjust them. It also gives you a sign, the students observing their positions and their shapes in class, give you as the teacher great alignment cues. If one person is doing it, you better believe that other people are doing it as well. Or in your own practice, when you're practicing, what's an alignment cue that you really need? If you really need it, there are many other people that could really benefit from that alignment cue as well. So an example of a self-assist might be in Warrior Two. Place your right hand to, if your right knee is bent, place your right hand to your right hip and your left hand to your left hip. And then draw the energy away. So then your hands can literally be pressing your hips away in external rotation. Now bring your arms up, Warrior Two. So another type of assist would be to demonstrate. Demonstration is a really great assist. And of course, as beginner yoga teachers, you might use this more than any other one. But again, we remember that although we want to demonstrate for people, we don't want to be doing our own practice. So what I like to do is I like to demonstrate, maybe it's helpful as you're transitioning postures. So getting into the posture with your students so that they can see where you're going, and then stand up and come right out, walk around the class, observe, and see how you can support your students. So you could show the pose as far as transition. You can also workshop a pose. And that might mean having everyone, sit on their heels for 5 minutes and you demonstrate headstand, for example. We're going to come into headstand next. Here's how it will look. You're going to interlace your hands, put your head in the center, etc., and show them what the posture should look like before they try it on their own, especially if it's a new and perhaps a more challenging posture. It may be worth it to workshop. That way, as your students are trying the posture, you can walk around and help assist. Another type of assist is the drishti. Drishti means gaze in your practice. And as far as a physical experience of drishti, traditionally we have 3 points of focus. One is at the tip of the nose, one is at the big toe, and one is at the navel. So depending on what your posture is, it will probably be pretty obvious: tip of the nose, navel, or big toe. So you can use those as your drishtis, but for example, if you're in a balance posture, oftentimes people will say gaze at a point in front of you, something that's not moving. So that's giving people the ability to draw their attention to one focal point, which, as we know, is very, very helpful so that we don't have a million thoughts coming in. Another form of drishti, again, a gaze, a focal point, would be your intention of the practice. So if I keep bringing back the intention, if I keep finding ways to weave that in, that's what the student is going to focus on primarily, so that they don't need to have all of the chatter in the mind going through their practice. So we intentionally weave that philosophy in so that they're able to focus on one thing, not many things. So physical drishti and also mental emotional drishti as far as theme weaving is concerned. So these are all the types of assists that we can have to support our students. And I recommend trying all of them, of course. Some might be more comfortable than others. And you might be inclined to, do more of a nurturing or supportive assist over the firm, direct, hands-on. But just remember that in order to balance people in the classroom, they probably could benefit from both. And remember, we want to come into an assist gradually and also come out of an assist gradually. And we always want to have the breath as a primary focus as far as adjusting. So anytime you're forward folding, anytime you're twisting, this is going to be on an exhalation where you deepen the pressure. Whereas if you're uplifting, if you're in wheel, bridge pose, something like this, then that assist is going to happen on the inhalation. So some things to remember as you start to navigate what type of assist you want to do in your practice. And of course, this will depend on the people that are in front of you, which is always going to change. So hope you enjoyed and gained some insightful information around assisting.